pointing is like, we need to have a conversation about this thing. Like, something takes place that makes the fact that we need to come together important, right? And then, I always do this teaching and feel like it's just such common sense, I almost feel silly teaching it sometimes, you know? But anyway. So, and then things expand, right? Start asking questions, exploring options, getting to know people. You arrive at a 3-day event, everybody gets to know each other. This is really nice, this is so interesting. There's a period of exploration and expansion that takes place, right? Then it reaches a point where the amount of expansion begins to stretch us beyond what we're comfortable with, right? If it gets to a point where it's just like, that person was really interesting when I first met them, but you think that? You did that? Right? Like, it begins to stretch us beyond what we're comfortable with, right? Ideas begin to occur that challenge our norms, that in the first place were exciting, but then actually just become uncomfortable, because it's forcing me, us, to think differently, to feel differently about things. It's demanding that I change my analysis of a person, of my situation, of the circumstance I'm in, of the project I'm working on, right? So you get all this uncomfort that begins to brew. And then, you know, there comes a point where you start, you know, drawing conclusions, making plans, assigning roles. I mean, you know it, right? Little matrices of who's going to do what by when, right? Depending on the scale of the work you're in. But there's this basic pattern, right? And for me, like, a good meeting of people has all of these 3 movements in it, because they're all going to happen anyway. So if we're ending an engagement or a process of participation here in the groan zone, what happens is everybody does this in the car on the drive home, down the pub with their mates, round the water cooler, right, round the dinner table with their family, over a glass of wine with their wife or their husband or their partner, right? Like, all of that, right? So it's like, how do we design for the way things are inevitably going to roll out anyway? How do we design for the way things are inevitably going to roll out anyway? Yeah? And then I think the other thing to say is that, like, the technical term for this is the groan zone. So there's a piece of, like, the longer we can stay in the groan zone, the more newness we have the opportunity to discover. So the more different perspectives and ideas and understandings and analyses of the world we can take in without completely losing our seat, right? The more we're going to have the opportunity to discover something new, something fundamentally different. The more opportunity there's going to be for us to collectively discover something that none of us could have seen on our own when we first came in the room, right? So if you just go, issue, a little bit of exploration, tiny bit of uncomfort, let's make an action plan. Teeny, tiny bit of change, teeny, tiny bit of innovation. All right? So if you're looking for some fundamental change, our ability to be able to be in the groan zone, to be in this uncomfort, it's an essential skill to build, right? But there are, of course, things that drive us out of here, right? There's inevitably things that drive us out of here. Time. It's a 60-minute meeting, and we've got to have something sorted by the end of it. It's a 2-year process. We're 18 months in, and we still haven't figured out exactly what we're going to be doing or how we're going to redesign the blah, blah, whatever, the e-patient record, whatever it is we're working on, right? So there's time will push us out of this. Tolerance. Like how much I can take. How much uncomfort can I take? How much challenge to my way of thinking and believing and understanding in the world can I take? Because if I'm in crisis, I'm no longer learning, right? So there's a level of like, what can I actually take? How much can I stand to be in this level of uncomfort? And there comes a point where you can't stand it anymore, and then it's like, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. All right? Yeah? And there'll be different levels of that, of course, in any engagement group you're meeting with, right? And then the other thing that drives people out of here is clarity. Clarity strikes, right? Something happens. Boom. For everyone, I don't know if you've been in those meetings or in those processes where suddenly the room leans in and it's like, there's felt clarity. But, we had a little bit of that on a run last night. You know, and we're still trying to figure out this whole piece, right? And so it's like, all right, but there are things that are inevitably going to push us out of this growing zone. But it's worth knowing, like, the amount of change we're going to see, you know, is going to be relative to our ability to withstand the diversity of perspectives and opinions.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if I should say. The amount of change we're going to see is relative to our capacity to withstand the diversity of perspectives and opinions. And withstand, I don't just mean like you're able to like hang in there. Like there's actually an ability to absorb them and allow them to change you inside.
When you first said grown zone, I thought you said grow zone.
Yeah, well, that, you know, there's people like growing zone, and talk about this as like the divergent phase, the convergent phase, and this being the emergent, where things come up that you could never have predicted, right?
And just to say out loud that people have, when Tim uses the word tolerance, people have different kind of settings, right? Some folks really enjoy the divergent phase, and some folks really enjoy the convergent phase. But actually, you need all of it. You need all of it to kind of collide here in this grown zone, right? I mean, it's also, sometimes you could even map the chaotic path on it, right? That we have different tolerances, and so, but our way of getting things done typically is to close this a bit too soon, right? To just close it too soon, not actually allow ourselves to groan, and especially in equity conversations, allowing ourselves to groan can feel quite messy, right? And for me, this is where the work becomes important, because the grown zone can devolve into personalities in many ways, right? And so if you keep the work there, you can groan about the work, and sometimes clarity will come, or time will come, or we can reach our tolerance. But when we get into the grown zone and it becomes around, you're too divergent, you hate coming. I feel controlled when you make me do next steps, or all you ever want to do is sit around and talk, right? We need divergence and we need convergence. And we need some sense of not closing down the grown zone too soon. We tend to err on closing it down too soon.